Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. If you're new here, consider subscribing. It really helps keep these stories coming. And while you're here, let me know in the comments where you're listening from. Now, sit back, relax, and let's get into the story. My name is Builder First Class Daniel Hale, United States Navy Seabees, attached to Naval Mobile Construction Battalion 11. I have 8 years in, 1 deployment in the Arabian Gulf building forward logistics sites, 2 hurricane disaster relief missions back home, and 1 jungle runway repair rotation in Guam. I thought this trip would be similar to that last one, hot, humid, repetitive, and noisy, with more time spent clearing plants and repairing coral rock pavement than worrying about anything dangerous. When our detail got orders for a remote island airfield refurbishment, most of us joked that we were going to be cutting vines and sweating through uniforms for a month until someone higher up decided the strip was not needed anymore. Even when we were told this island had not hosted regular flight operations since World War II, it still felt like a routine assignment. The mission sounded straightforward: reopen an abandoned Pacific runway as a contingency fuel stop. The concept had been discussed for years throughout the Pacific Fleet, create fallback positions, remote landing points, and supply caches across older American outposts. We were just one team executing that strategy. It sounded simple on paper. There were 24 of us. That was enough to operate heavy machinery, maintain security, and establish a functional camp. We arrived by landing craft, bringing 2 Caterpillar bulldozers, 1D7 and 1D8, a medium excavator, hydraulic breakers, water purification equipment, fuel bladders full of diesel and JP8, portable generators, pallets of food, tents, spare parts, and a communication suite with satellite radio capable of clear contact with the Pacific Command. We also had standard Navy small arms, M4 carbines, M9 pistols, 1 M240 machine gun, and shotguns for breaching and wildlife defense. There were no expectations of conflict. They were safety gear, not tactical readiness equipment. Most of us were more comfortable behind a welding visor or a grease-covered engine than a rifle. The island itself was about 3 miles long and maybe 1.5 miles across at its widest point. It had coral beaches, thick palms, wild grass, and 1 long WWII-era airstrip in the center. The runway was cracked and uneven, still visible under moss and encroaching vegetation. Nearby, there were 2 concrete pillboxes, 1 long overgrown hangar with half-collapsed roofing, an old generator shed, and an operations hut built from concrete and timber. When we landed, I remember thinking that the place smelled like salt, machine oil, and old history. There were remnants of rusted metal revetments where aircraft once sheltered. Vines ran over them like nature had been reclaiming the war relics for decades, which it had. We set up camp on the western side of the strip. Our leading chief, Chief Petty Officer Marcus Mac Franklin, assigned work zones, watch schedules, and a plan. We were to spend the first 2 days clearing foliage and debris from the runway edges. Then we would begin resurfacing damaged areas using coral fill and compacting tools. The first 4 days passed the same way. Heat-soaked uniforms, dust in our eyes, sunburn even through sunscreen, and the steady growl of diesel engines cutting into stubborn roots and pushing sand mounds away from the old runway grooves. We installed temporary living quarters inside the strongest remaining structures to avoid storms. We built privacy partitions using plywood and tarps. We hung string lights and basic electric cabling from generator output lines and created a command desk inside the old control room. Everything was going according to plan. Then came the 5th evening. It was around 6:30, sun going low. Most of us were finishing chow, which consisted of pouch food heated in a portable field kitchen. I was rinsing a metal plate near the water unit when Petty Officer Wyatt, our radio tech, jogged across the camp. He had the handheld SATCOM clipped to his belt and a focused look on his face. "Chief," he called to Franklin, who stood near the bulldozer's fuel hose. "We're picking up an unknown vessel signal, passive radar hit from the south." Everyone's head turned. Radar signals were not exactly common for us out here. We assumed maybe a passing cargo ship or fishing vessel, though the route was unusual. Chief Franklin wiped his hands on a rag and walked over. "Commercial traffic?" Not answering hails, Wyatt replied. "Just a blip moving irregularly. Looks large." That got our attention. He brought up the satellite imaging tablet, the feed updated. Grainy, but clear enough a massive ship drifting, bow angled toward our reef. I grabbed binoculars from the supply crate. Others did the same. When the ship came into visible range, it was obvious it was a cruise liner, one of the huge white-painted floating resort types you see advertised everywhere. Only this one looked wrong. The lights flickered across multiple decks. No sound from its speakers, no lifeboats moving, nothing that suggested normal operation. It coasted straight toward the shallow water like no one was steering. We called the bridge, issued warnings, tried marine radio. No reply. The silence felt harsh, like the ocean had swallowed all human presence aboard that ship except for the unsteady glow of lights inside. By just after 7, the hull scraped reef. The sound echoed across water, dull metal grinding coral. Some of us flinched. The ship slowed and lodged itself at an angle, bow ground into sand, stern still in deeper swell. The superstructure leaned slightly toward starboard. Lights fluttered again, and a portion of the upper deck near the bow sagged, like something had burned or collapsed earlier. "Could be power failure," someone muttered, "mechanical emergency." But we saw movement soon after, and that theory dissolved. Shapes appeared, walking along open decks. Dozens at first. Many staggered or leaned against rails. A few fell over and did not stand back up. As the dusk fell, our night vision scopes showed more bodies emerging, pouring out of cabins and onto the top decks. "How many people are on that thing?" Seaman Ortiz asked quietly. "Usually 3,000 to 5,000 on those types," Corporal Evans responded. He was Marine attachments for site defense. Even half of that is a lot. Nobody spoke for a moment. We expected distress calls, but instead we heard nothing. No voices carried on the waves, no flares, no alarms, just shuffling forms. At about 9, we saw several figures climbing down damaged gangways, then slipping into the shallows. More fell overboard and drifted. Some began swimming, uncoordinated but persistent, pushing towards shore with slow, uneven strokes. That was the moment fear really set in. A disabled vessel with passengers acting strangely was one thing. People abandoning ship silently at night and crawling toward a remote island with no radio contact was another. Chief gave orders. All watches doubled. No one sleeps until we understand what we're dealing with. We set up perimeter lighting using portable LED towers powered by small generators. A couple of us repositioned the D8 bulldozer near the edge of camp in case it needed to act as moving cover. Evans and his Marines distributed ammunition to the security team. I loaded my issued rifle and clipped a radio to my vest. No one panicked, but unease was clear on every face. By midnight, shapes reached our beaches, maybe 15 of them all walking strangely, shoulders slack, heads tilted, movements stiff. We shouted commands in English and multiple languages, thinking maybe they needed assistance or medical aid. They did not respond. One figure lunged at a flashlight beam and stumbled forward unnaturally fast. Marines fired warning shots. Still no reaction. When one individual came within 20 feet of the nearest tent line, Evans issued a direct order, and a single round dropped the person. Silence followed. then distant gurgling sounds from more figures emerging from the surf. Chief got on SATCOM and tried to reach command. Lines were jammed. We only got fragmented transmissions. Something about disturbances in several ports. Quarantine warnings. Unknown illness. Radio operators on mainland bases sounded strained. Before long, civilian channels started cutting out entirely. Power grids failed. Reports of mass illness events came through in broken words. Then messages stopped abruptly from one station after another. A lieutenant at Pacific Command said there would be a helicopter in the morning to extract us or deliver more information. Then the line went dead. When dawn broke, gray light revealed what night vision could not fully capture. At least 40 people scattered along the coral sand near wreckage fragments and palm roots. Some were prone, others still trying to crawl inland. They were covered in seaweed and debris. Their clothes were stained, their eyes dull, movement irregular. It did not take training to see something was very wrong. We held formation, called warnings again, and repeated medical emergency commands. No replies. When one lurched toward us with mouth open and hands out, Evans motioned again. Controlled shots dropped that one and two others. It did not feel like combat. It felt like we were putting down people who needed treatment but could not be reasoned with. An internal battle raged in all of us. Everyone in uniform takes a similar oath to protect life and uphold conduct. But no amount of training prepares you for moving human bodies without awareness or speech, closing distance like they intend to grab you, ignoring gunfire warnings and shouting voices. At around 9 that morning, the first close-range incident happened. One man wandered alone near the west clearing, dehydrated, bleeding from shins and elbows. He looked confused, less aggressive. Our corpsman, Hospitalman Second Class Bennett, approached cautiously with gloves and a face shield, trying to render aid. We covered him with rifles. Bennett attempted to calm the man. The stranger's speech was slurred and fragmented. Bennett went to restrain him gently with zip cuffs, thinking the man was delirious and needed fluids. The stranger suddenly lunged, bit down on Bennett's arm through the fabric, and tore cloth and skin. It took 3 of us to pull him off. The stranger kept clawing, even after we dislocated his arm and pinned him. The chief authorized a controlled fire, and the threat ended. Bennett stood frozen, staring at his arm. Blood dripped onto sand. He stayed calm, but his breathing changed instantly. We cleaned and pressure-wrapped the wound, gave him antibiotics, and moved him to isolation in the old radio shack. We reinforced the door and set guard. Bennett insisted it would be fine, that bites happen in confused rescue situations. But he also knew what we were all starting to piece together: the world had just shifted drastically. We spent the rest of the morning building barricades. The D7 pushed coral fragments, broken logs, and rusted revetment ribs into a loose wall at the eastern runway edge. We layered concertina wire we found in storage crates. We set up sandbag positions and improved sight lines. The excavator dug a shallow sanitation trench behind camp. We began reworking the damaged hangar into a stronger shelter by framing broken beams with steel braces and relocating generators inside hardened walls. The chief prioritized fuel protection. Diesel and JP-8 bladders were moved behind thick revetment plates and fenced. Our portable water purification unit ran non-stop, pulling seawater through filters and UV chambers. Solar panels from a survey hut were rewired to charge battery banks for essential items. Food stores were inventoried and ration plan initiated. By noon, the bodies on the beach showed no signs of conventional life. We watched through binoculars as one prone body began moving again, twisting unnaturally before rising. We did not allow any to approach this time. Controlled fire ensured none reached perimeter. It became a grim routine. Safety first, emotion second. Chief Franklin called us together at 1600. His voice remained level. We don't have full intel, so we treat this like a contaminated environment. Quarantine protocol. No direct contact with unknown personnel. No one leaves perimeter without authorization and full protective gear. We focus on defense and essential tasks. Maintain communication attempts, conserve fuel and water, stay sharp. The outside world is working, thus we are not isolated forever. He was trying to hold morale. We appreciated it. By nightfall, the situation worsened. High tide carried bodies from the grounded cruise ship around the island edges. Surf washed clusters of them toward the eastern palm groves. We heard strange vocal noises in the distance, low and uneven. They were unlike panic cries or pain sounds, more like instinctive vocalizations without language. We stayed on perimeter guard throughout the night, rotating in 2-hour watches. I remember lying on my cot, listening to the hum of generator fans and faint noises outside. Sleep felt unreachable. Around midnight, the ship's upper deck collapsed further, causing a thundering metallic crash that echoed like thunder. Through magnified scopes, we saw massive sections fall and hundreds more bodies spill from broken railings and gaps, many sliding into the water and bobbing to the surface, drifting toward land. Morning came with haze. Bennett's condition declined quickly. Fever, shaking, rapid breathing, disorientation. Our field medical setup was strong for trauma, but not unknown infection. We gave him fluids, anti-inflammatories, and oxygen from the emergency tank. It slowed nothing. By sundown, he lost consciousness. We secured the shack doors and posted 2 armed watch. No one wanted to say what we feared would happen. It happened around 2 in the morning. There was a sudden thud inside the shack, then scratching, then heavy impacts on the door, the sound of furniture dragging, groaning. The watch called Chief immediately. We moved as a team, weapons ready but emotions tangled. Bennett was our friend. Our doc, the one who patched us up during training accidents and field injuries. Now we had to treat him like a threat. Evans and another Marine held position at the doorway while Chief gave final command. Open and ended quick. 1 clean round. Silence followed. It felt like losing a family member. That night, tasking changed from runway repair to survival engineering. We welded steel plating to bulldozer front ends. Not a complete armored shield, but enough protection for controlled pushing operations. We welded rods to create mesh barriers to prevent grasping hands near the operator cabin if needed. We built spear-like attachments for brush clearing that could double as defense extensions. We reinforced the wind-damaged hangar, converting it into a hardened living space with sandbag walls and overhead cover. We dug reinforced fighting positions at corners of perimeter with clear overlapping fire sectors. We routed power cables through overhead conduits to avoid damage. Every step made us feel a little safer. On the 3rd day, after grounding, we attempted to re-establish satellite link. We got fragments of communication, emergency evacuation orders for major mainland bases, mention of ports overwhelmed, government requesting calm, then abrupt static. One transmission hinted at compromised bases in California and Hawaii. Do not return to CONUS unless instructed. No mention of a helicopter. No confirmation anyone even knew we were still here. For a while, it felt like we were a forgotten outpost on an old map, left alone in rising chaos. We continued rationing fuel. Generators ran only during essential periods. Solar panels took load when possible. We rigged portable fans and lights to battery banks. We created a rotating cooking schedule to save propane. We built a smoke-free incinerator pit using diesel and metal grating to eliminate remains safely, understanding burial risk. It was clinical and harsh, but survival rarely allows sentiment. On the coastline, more individuals emerged each tide cycle drawn by engine noise and movement. We learned patterns. Noise attracted them. Light movement at night triggered them. Fire did not frighten them. They did not respond to pain. They did not appear to tire. They moved in erratic clusters, sometimes fast, sometimes slow, always drawn toward activity. Their bodies degraded under heat and saltwater exposure, but that did not stop movement immediately. By the 7th day after grounding, ammunition levels concerned us. We had enough for controlled defensive actions, but not prolonged firefights. We developed procedures. We would only engage within 40 yards to guarantee accuracy. Single shots aimed precisely. No unnecessary firing. Controlled volleys as last resort. Most of the time, the bulldozers became our primary clearing method, slow, loud, but effective at pushing larger clusters away from camp. We welded thicker side plates and installed improvised mesh screens over operator cabins. The worst encounter hit on day 8 just before dawn. We heard rustling from the palm tree line, then noise built, branches snapping under weight. Flashlights and night optics revealed approximately 70 to 100 figures moving as an uneven mass toward our southern flank. That was the point when we truly accepted this was no isolated incident. This was an outbreak, and we were cut off. Evans led a disciplined defense. The bulldozer operators positioned the D8 as a moving barrier, pushing debris into a wedge and slowly advancing. Marines controlled fire to slow stragglers. Seabees rotated positions, firing only when targets approached close distance. The encounter lasted around 30 minutes, and we used far too many rounds. A few individuals managed to get within 10 yards of our barricade wire before being stopped. It felt like work more than battle. Steady, grim, careful work. After that engagement, the tally of ammunition, fuel, and medical supplies became a ritual. Daily checklists, measurable ration plans, mechanical maintenance logs. We performed routine checks on water filters, generator oil levels, battery charge cycles, and food inventories. That structure held us together. Efficiency replaced panic. Routine replaced fear. But exhaustion crept in. The psychological strain was intense. Night noises grew stranger, distant calls echoing through jungle canopy, like wind moving through vocal cords that did not know language anymore. Sleep came in short blocks. We rotated watches constantly. That might have saved us more than anything. On day 10, Chief called an all hands. He laid out 2 options. Option 1, continue runway restoration so that if an aircraft passed overhead, we could signal, or if command regained control, a pickup could land. Option 2, shift to permanent defense mode, create long-term settlement plan, clear farmland, fortify structures, and dig water reservoirs. Neither choice felt good. Both required dedication. Both accepted that rescue might not come. Morale discussions followed. Everyone spoke openly. Some wanted to stay and build defenses. Others hoped for a flight out. Ultimately, we chose hybrid operation. Continue runway repair while fortifying further. Keep hope alive while planning for permanence. We stripped remaining gear from pallets, welded steel plating for additional dozer armor, bolted scrap panels to hangar entrances to create stronger blast-style doors. We deployed motion sensor trip lights around the perimeter and laid improvised noise traps using canisters and empty ammo tins. We built a secondary bunker area inside the largest revetment, placing food, water, tools, and spare ammunition there in case primary shelter failed. We scouted the island interior in pairs, clearing areas on high ground for signal fires, though we avoided lighting them to prevent attracting unnecessary attention. Water was constant priority. The purification trailer worked well, But we also set up rainwater collection using tarps and gutters tied into plastic tanks. Freshwater reserves grew slowly but steadily. Food supplies were manageable but finite. Fishing nets went up on east and west shores. Coconuts became supplement calories. We practiced quiet cooking to avoid smoke trails. The chief insisted on maintaining hygiene discipline, clean water, waste managed, boots washed with bleach solution, hands sanitized, sleeping gear aired during daylight hours. On the 15th day, a distress flare rose in the distance not from the cruise ship, but from the far north shoreline. We debated sending a recon team but decided risk outweighed unknown benefit. We were already stretched thin. That decision bothered us, but survival requires prioritization. More days passed. Encounters continued. Some days, only a few individuals reached the wire, easily handled. Other mornings brought clusters of 30 or more wandering from palm forests. We suspected tidal patterns and ocean currents from the wreck influenced distribution. We learned to operate bulldozers quietly by modifying exhaust baffles. That reduced attraction radius. We switched to hand tools for some clearing tasks to reduce noise entirely. On day 22, the radio crackled. Weak signal. A fragmented voice mentioned widespread global outbreaks. Instructions to shelter. Orders not to return to continental United States. Word that major cities were compromised. Then another voice. If you hear this, maintain position. Avoid mainland. Conserve fuel. Rescue efforts being consolidated. The signal cut again. That night, we sat in the makeshift mess area and shared a quiet conversation. We were Seabees. Our motto includes building and fighting. We had training for adversity, yet this challenge existed outside our manuals. Still, routines kept us strong. Friendships, too. Even jokes surfaced sometimes, lightning, heavy atmosphere talk of naming the dozers, placing a sign on camp calling it Forward Operating Base Coral Shield, arguing over who made the best rice with canned vegetables. Small, normal things in an abnormal world. On day 29, a storm rolled in. Rain pounded, wind howled through palm trunks, visibility dropped. That brought its own problems. Wind noise masked movement, and we could not risk stepping outside perimeter to clear washed-in debris. We rode it out in hardened shelter, weapons nearby. The storm lasted hours. When morning came, we discovered fresh drag marks in sand beyond the wire. Something or someone had approached in the rain and wandered away or fallen. It reinforced constant caution. Fuel storage grew lower over time, but efficiency improved. We ran equipment only when necessary. Solar handled low-draw needs. We rigged a pedal generator from spare exercise gear to power handheld radios. Every improvised system added resilience. Across the weeks, there were losses. Seaman Garrison caught a cut on coral rock while clearing, and despite treatment, infection set in quick. He passed quietly 2 days later. We did not let nature take him. One controlled round, then immediate handling. That is the part of survival rarely discussed. It is not heroic or dramatic. It is just duty and care in its harshest form. By the 35th day, we had the runway mostly cleared, smoothed, and compact tested to basic operational standard. Not perfect, but landable for small aircraft. If a C-12 or C-130 ever came, they could set down. Fuel reserves were positioned. We rigged a flare system and optical signal markers along runway edges using solar garden lights scavenged from around island structures. The island looked simultaneously primitive and engineered, like a temporary base in the middle of nowhere designed to function under siege. That night, we took shifts watching sky for aircraft, even though none had come in weeks. No helicopters, no patrol planes, just occasional satellites gliding overhead like distant reminders the world had once been connected and planned and busy with normal routines. I wondered what my family was experiencing back home. I had not heard their voices since deployment. The idea that normal life might not return for a long time layered another weight onto us. On day 42, we heard engines, not aircraft maritime. A small powerboat approached from the west, riding chop. We positioned defensively, caution overriding curiosity. The boat slowed near the reef. Figures stood aboard. They waved something white fabric or tarp, but then one leaned forward, and we saw the posture not stable, not steady, swaying in that same unsettling way. It became clear we could not let that vessel approach. We signaled with lights. No response. The boat drifted closer. Evans took command fire order. A few precise rounds disabled engine housing. The boat drifted parallel to reef and eventually grounded on rocks. We did not investigate. We had learned enough by then every interaction risked overwhelming us. The 60-day mark came and went without rescue. By then, we had established a farm plot by clearing brush and planting fast-growing crops from emergency seed kits. We built water cisterns from plastic drums. We trapped small island animals to supplement diet. We built additional shelter walls, dug deeper trenches, and installed overhead netting to break up silhouettes. We lived, worked, and defended in cycles. We were tired but stable. We held weekly meetings to evaluate options. Some insisted rescue would come eventually. Others believed the world had changed for good, and we would be part of whatever rebuilt. Chief reminded us that our duty was to survive, to hold ground, and to help others when safe. Seabees do not abandon posts lightly, and we do not surrender to challenges. We build. We endure. Still, uncertainty wore at us. Supplies dwindled gradually. Machinery needed constant maintenance. Salt air corroded metal despite grease layers. Rubber seals weakened. We spent hours preserving gear that once seemed indestructible. The dozers, our armored lifelines, remained operational only through constant care. Fuel filters changed, track tension checked, engine fluids topped, welding patches applied on metal stress points. Through it all, one fact held true. The infected never stopped coming. Not in overwhelming waves daily, but in persistent trickles, like the ocean kept delivering remnants of a broken world to our shores. We learned to eliminate quietly whenever possible spears fashioned from rebar, machetes with welded handguards, silent takedown procedures, always in pairs, always swift. Ammunition remained precious. On day 74, we received brief radio clarity. A military voice, strained but steady, transmitted on emergency band. Survivors maintain safe positions. Evacuation points limited. Priority to high population regions. Pacific outposts remain low priority. You are not forgotten. Hold ground. Help is slow, but coming. That message lasted 16 seconds before static reclaimed the channel. But it gave something valuable. Hope that somewhere, command structure still existed. We held on to that thought like equipment we could not afford to drop. The following nights we sat around a low-flame stove, eating rice and tinned vegetables, sharing stories of pre-deployment life spouses, children, fishing trips, college plans, sports teams, barbecues, construction projects. Those conversations reminded us why survival mattered. We were not just holding an airfield. We were holding memories, skills, and futures for the world that might eventually rise again. Time blurred. Work shifts and watch rotations defined days. We kept structured routine because structure prevented fear from taking space. We maintained hygiene checks, gear inspections, training drills, and construction tasks. Without schedule, morale could crack. But with purpose, even quiet moments felt meaningful. On day 91, Chief gathered us. We had done enough runway repairs to consider a test if an aircraft ever came by, we could guide it down. But at the same time, we had grown capable of sustaining ourselves. Gardens sprouted, rainwater tanks filled, fish traps produced protein. We had learned island rhythms when tides rose highest, when storms formed offshore, when quiet mornings often became uneasy afternoons. Survival had become pattern, not panic. Chief put it to vote again, continue preparing for evacuation or commit fully to long-term settlement. Arguments formed, reasonable on both sides. But in the end, the vote aligned. Keep both options alive. Maintain runway operational readiness, maintain defenses, continue building life systems, stay prepared for either rescue or permanent presence. And that is where I stand now, writing this in the log by battery lantern light, near the entrance of our fortified hangar shelter. The island is quiet tonight, except for waves and rustling leaves. Our generators are off to save fuel. Solar batteries power only essentials. 4 watch posts hold position. The D8 rests near the front, metal armor gleaming from a fresh oil rag wipe down. Our makeshift bunker holds supplies in case shelter breach ever occurs. Plants grow in rows behind sandbag terraces. Fishing nets dry near water barrels. Tools rest against concrete walls, cleaned and ready. Even in fear, there is discipline. Even in isolation, there is teamwork. I cannot say when the outside world will return. I cannot say what shape it will take. But I can say we adapted. We endured. We built a safe place in an unsafe time. We did not abandon our mission, even when the mission changed into something none of us could have imagined when we stepped onto this island. Tomorrow at sunrise, we resume runway inspection, check irrigation lines, reinforce the eastern barricade, and run equipment drills. We will scan horizon for aircraft and maintain watch on coastline. We will conserve fuel, sustain crops, and maintain hygiene. We will remain ready to defend, ready to rebuild, ready for rescue or permanence. If someone finds this account in the future, understand that we did not give up. The world changed quickly, but discipline, training, engineering skill, teamwork, and calm decision-making carried us forward. We remain here prepared and watchful. If rescue comes, we will leave this place knowing we held without faltering. If no rescue comes, this island will continue to function because we made it so. We are United States Navy Seabees. Our purpose is to build and fight, and even here, far from home, surrounded by unknown threats and limited communication, we live that purpose every day. We hold the line, we wait, and we build a future, one task at a time. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support keeps these creepypastas coming. Until next time, stay alert, stay safe, and never ignore the feeling that something is watching.